Okay, we're live. Welcome back to episode number 71 of Raise the Banner. This time I hit go live and it just immediately went live for some reason. But as usual, your three co-hosts, Matt Couture, Zach Brewitt, Benny Ballgame, and today we got from Gridiron Heroics, Zach McGlone. Zach, how you doing?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Let's just jump right into it. We got a shorter episode today. Patriots packed, slam packed. We'll jump into a little bit of Red Sox later this week, but for the Patriots right now, I want to talk about today's kind of comments. We heard from Elliot Wolf a bit. We heard from Mike Vrabel. Ben, I know that we discussed it off the record about his comments, so I'll start with you. How you feeling about what he said regarding free agency, the draft, and all that, and how things are flowing right now?
I mean, nothing kind of stood out. Nothing was shocking. Similar verbiage you get from, whether it's a GM or a head coach that has insight and power within the front office and decision-making process. I would say, at least from a Patriots perspective, it's nice because we're not used to hearing from, the front office guys, or at least, for the last 20 some odd years, pre-Gerard Mayo, we didn't hear a peep about anything. It was a throw a dart at a dartboard and guess what the best of them situation. But, it's nice that it's a change. We see it from a lot of other teams about, we settle on our guy and, but this, that, and the other thing. I thought it was interesting because I know that Matt, you and I, and Zach, you too, we've kind of all speculated that, running back might be a sneaky need for this team. Obviously, they still got Stevenson and Gibson under contract for the next 3 and 2 years, respectively, for relatively team-friendly deals, but they kind of lack that next guy. That might be a sneaky need, and then Vrabel kind of came right out and said that, they do plan at drafting a running back at some point. So, those insights are pretty nice. I think, anyone's guess is as good as it gets. Until I see something different. I know it's a different regime, but until you see something different, you really don't know what to expect because you only have really one thing to go on. So, we'll see what they do at 4 if they even stay there. There's obviously some uncertainty in the top 3, so we'll see. But, it's nice to kind of get antsy. You're starting to have that draft talk where, 21, 23-ish days, 24-ish days out now. So, getting ramped up, ready to go.
Yeah. Brewitt?
Yeah, to me, it felt like they were setting the table for them to take Will Campbell if he's there. Right. It very much felt like both Vrabel and Elliot Wolf were hyping him up. Elliot Wolf said that he can play both guard and left tackle. We know Mike Vrabel loves his violent players, his maulers. He pretty much all but confirmed that's how he views Will Campbell, saying, he's from the SEC. Arm length doesn't really matter to him that much. Look at the film. He's playing against guys in the SEC who are going to be drafted. A lot of those players who get drafted, are going to go on to be stars in the NFL, like Abdul Carter, for example, obviously, and guys like that. So would I like to see them take maybe a more explosive player at a position of need like Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter? Yeah, of course, because those are obviously positions of need as well. But like I said, the answers that both of them gave kind of set the table for kind of prepping us for Will Campbell. And where there's smoke, there's fire. Kind of to Ben's point, a lot more visibility into how they're looking at things this year than in previous years. Obviously, Gerard Mayo was vocal about it, maybe a bit too vocal at times, and Bill was mute on all subjects. So it's good to kind of see if they're not going to give us an answer as to who they're taking, at least kind of the frame of mindset that they're looking at when evaluating players, whether it's in the first round, like Will Campbell, for example, like I said, or even guys that they already have on the roster right now, like Jalen Polk. I know Elliot Wolf got into that a little bit with, I believe it was either Mike Reese or Felger. I can't remember who it was, but yeah, I think, like I said, they're setting the table for us to be prepared for Will Campbell if he's there.
Yeah, absolutely. Zach, you got anything on Vrabel and then even Elliot Wolf comments?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously Variable talked about Travis Hunter a little bit, saying how they'd let him play both ways, which at the NFL level, different ball game. But I mean, I like what Elliot Wolf said a couple weeks ago about having him, minor on one side, major on the other. But I mean, I completely agree. I really think Patriots fans should start getting ready for Will Campbell in a Patriots jersey, especially if Travis Hunter's not on the board. Because, I mean, Abdul Carter, yeah, it'd be great if he was there at 4, but if he's not, and I don't think he will be, then I think Will Campbell's pretty much just going to slide right into left tackle, because I think left guard could be more Layden Robinson area. And as we said, or as you said, he loves that Taylor Lewan, mauling type of guy. So I think people should start getting ready for it.
Real quick,
Yeah, absolutely.
Zach, do you think so? Say it's Hunter. So Matt and I kind of disagree. I think the Giants still, I think the odds favor them still taking Travis Hunter at 3. But let's say they don't. Let's say they take Shedeur Sanders, and you've got Hunter sitting there at 4. Do you still feel like it's Will Campbell, or is there a real shot that it's Travis Hunter at 4, and that they might say, he's too good to pass up. Let's look at, like a Josh Connerly, or I'm not even going to try to say the first name, the kid from Minnesota, like whether it's like
Ursary,
Ursary, like either like late first or early second, depending on where they think he might be. Like, is there a real shot it's Travis Hunter if he's sitting there, or is it like, yeah, he might be there, but you still should get ready to listen for Will Campbell being called?
I think if Travis Hunter's on the board and no one's coming knocking with multiple first-round picks and a trade down, I think they might sprint that card up with Travis Hunter's name on it.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, that's what I do. And when you have a shot at the best player in the drafts, I think, especially with Elliot Wolf catching so much fire this last offseason, I think he's going to take Travis Hunter. He's there.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just about to say. Is like, they're not going to come out and say, yeah, we want Travis Hunter. That's who we're going to pick if he's there. But, I think that he is seen consensusly by the Patriots and around the NFL as, if not the best player in the draft, one of the top 2 or 3 best players in the draft. The only other 2 really in consideration, in my opinion, are Abdul Qadir and Genty. And then, I'm not going to get into the do you take a running back that early type of conversation, but I think if Hunter's there, that's going to be the pick. For the simple fact of, I think he is pretty close to bust proof. He can help on both sides. And more importantly, like, as much as left tackle is a major need for them, they can go with that pick and say, like, even for some reason, if Hunter busted, if he sucked or whatever, they could, like, the pressure to hit on him goes down because he's just kind of that consensus pick. Like, it's the obvious pick. So it's like if, I don't know, like Trevor Lawrence with Jacksonville. No one blames Jacksonville for taking Trevor Lawrence because, like, he was just so overwhelmingly the consensus QB1 in the first pick and stuff like that. So no one's like looking at them like, oh, they made a terrible decision, even though he's clearly not lived up to that, 101 generational talent conversation. So that's part of it, I think. Not that Vrabel, I think, is afraid to take a risk and stuff like that. But if Hunter's there, it's going to be Hunter. I'm extremely confident in that. And then if not, I think Vrabel prefers to move back. But the question is, if Hunter's not there, what are the offers really going to look like? And I just don't really see them being overly great. So at that point, I think I lean more likely that they just sit and take what I think would be Campbell. But in my preference is they could slide back a few picks and then ideally still get the guy.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think an ideal scenario, if there's no Carter or Hunter at 4, could be, a Will Campbell and not guard Will Campbell, left tackle Will Campbell, and then maybe move up back into the 20s to get a guy like Luther Burden or one of those receivers. That's where I would probably lean.
Yeah,
and I mean, it's good. I
was gonna say, if you can get, and I don't know how enamored they'll be by him, but the Jets need help at wide receiver. Carolina could use a wide receiver. So it's like, do you run the risk of, do you take, the Jets could offer you a little bit more of an enticing pick, because I don't think Carolina is going to give you their second rounder because they don't have much after that. But, could you see a team like the Jets be like, hey, we'll give you 7 and 73 and, a third rounder in 2026. Would they pull the trigger on that? Like, could you probably still get Will Campbell at 7? Maybe, because maybe the Jets go, we don't want to miss out on a chance to give Justin Fields a guy like Tet McMillan, and maybe they pull the trigger and say, this is something we can, maybe we can build around Justin Fields because we've got 2 years to figure out if he's going to be a future asset, and we want to give him as many weapons as possible. Not to mention the fact that outside of Garrett Wilson, they really have nothing as far as talented pass catchers go on that team.
Yeah, certainly, like Tet McMillan to New York makes a lot of sense. McMillan to the Saints makes sense.
Panthers.
Jacksonville, outside of Brian Thomas Jr., like they don't really have much there. Like he could even go there. Obviously, like you just said, the Panthers make sense. So there's a lot of teams inside there that I think he matches up with. But I also buy into the stock that there's a chance that they just don't really love him. We've heard whispers around the league that some teams don't view him that highly. And I'm one of those guys. I like him. I think he is a later first round talent. But we'll see on that end of things. But obviously the question comes, like for the Patriots, is if Hunter's not there, how do you approach it? Do you say, is Campbell let's just go get the guy we want, like the next best guy that we see, and whether that's Will Campbell or whoever, or do we try to slide back, whether it's 2 to the Raiders, 2 picks to the Raiders, like you said, 3 picks to the Jets, or maybe all the way back? I think like the furthest I could see is maybe like 12 with Dallas. Do you guys anticipate like how much? If Hunter isn't there, what do you think the likelihood is that they move back?
I don't view it very high at all. I know Vrabel said they're open to trading back. I think everybody says that, especially as you get closer to the draft, just trying to see what's out there and try to maximize all the offers you get. But I think from the start of the offseason, right, they've been saying we're taking the best player available. There's too many holes to kind of try to get cute, whatever. But I think if both Carter and Hunter are gone, I think the best player that they view who would be available is Will Campbell. And I know I'm harping on the Will Campbell thing today, but I think that's just where they're leaning. If again both those guys are gone, I think they do view him as the third best player in the draft for what they have. And as you said, man, I don't think that they're going to get all that enticing of offers to move back, especially if you're going to get, like let's use the Jets example, as an example, are we going to give any assets to the Jets to move up and to move forward? I have a hard time doing that. I would have a hard time seeing Elliott Wolf and Mike Vrabel being okay with the interdivision trade, especially if they're rivals. I know it's not as deep of a rivalry anymore.
It's also the factor that with the Jets that if Hunter's not there, the Jets could be moving up for Shedeur Sanders. I know they obviously they brought in Fields, but I've seen a lot of whispers that they really like Sanders. So like I've been a big vocal guy of like basically under any circumstance you don't give your division rival a chance to find that franchise guy, and that's despite 100%. The fact that like I'm not a big Sanders believer.
Yeah,
I agree.
And you would run that risk. Obviously, if the Jets are looking to move up, the question goes, well, the Jets have, they're drafting the top 10 for a reason. They have multiple needs at multiple spots. So that would be a wild card. I hadn't even thought about the idea of them trading up to draft Shedeur Sanders with the idea that they view him as a future franchise type guy and would be willing, but maybe, they want to groom him a little bit because, as we all know, if the Jets draft you in the first round, it probably is not a good thing. They have a tendency to ruin quarterbacks and have for a long, long time.
I certainly wouldn't want to go there.
They just certainly haven't quite figured out how to draft and develop a young, talented quarterback yet. With that said, maybe they're willing to be like, hey, like we're going to sit and groom you behind Fields. Hadn't even thought about that as a potential option, but yeah, you're right. You don't, if you have any inkling that they're calling because they want to draft a quarterback, you look, even though I think Drake May is the real deal and they have the guy, the last thing you want to do is give a division rival a quarterback that can elevate a team and make it more difficult for you to win a division.
Yeah, I mean, it's good.
So, I mean, I agree. I think if they're sitting there at 4 and Carter and Hunter are gone, I mean, in a draft like this, when there's 2, blue chip prospects, everybody wants to move down, but it takes 2 to make a trade. And I think Mike Vrabel's really the type of guy to be like, yeah, screw it. I'm taking my guy. I don't care if I get more assets.
Well, so the problem is, the factor is even if Hunter's gone, which I've said to you, Ben, I think there's a 50-50 chance right now whether the Giants take Sanders or Hunter or whatever. If Hunter's not there, I think there will still be offers. But the question comes is it worth sliding back to, let's say, 8? Let's say the Panthers want to come up for Mason Graham to jump the Jaguars. If they're just offering a 3rd round pick, is it worth sliding back to 8 at that point, or does the value, the consensus value of what it takes to move up historically from 8 to 4, it would not be there, is what I'm saying. You're not going to get 8 to 4 for, in many circumstances, could be like a 1st round pick you get. That's not going to happen, especially if Hunter's not there.
And I think that's why, I mean, when it comes to this draft, since you're not going to get a lot in a trade down anyways, I think that's why Vrabel will be more apt to just take his guy right there.
Yeah. Now, if Hunter is available, let's say, because I think if Hunter's available for you at 4, the phones are going to be ringing. I think outside of QB, he is as valuable in a trade back that you can get. So if you're a team I don't know, I could see a team like Chicago. I could see Ben Johnson looking at Travis Hunter and thinking about the things that he could do with him. And Chicago comes in and they have 39 and 41. So they have 2 higher 2nd round picks. What does it take for you to move back to something like 10 with Hunter sitting on the board?
I mean, I think I wouldn't move down that many spots for anything less than a future 1st. I mean, that's that many spots in the 1st round's a lot. I know it's a down draft, but I wouldn't even need 2 1st round picks maybe. But first, it's got to be a future 1st in there.
What if they offered 39 and 41 with 10?
I mean, I'd consider it, especially in a draft like this. However, I mean, I'd rather have more capital in next year's draft than I would in this year's draft.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, having 4 picks in the top 40 or 41 is very intriguing.
Yeah, especially where those they're not really a high 2nd round pick because of the way the tiebreaker works. But those 3 mid 2nd round picks would look awfully juicy, especially if, say they slide back, because you could probably get, I don't know if Campbell would be sitting there at 10. I don't think it's impossible, but he probably isn't there. So it's do you think that a guy, and Matt and I were talking about this earlier today, do you think a guy like Membu could possibly slide over and play left tackle? Is he athletic enough to make that switch? That's, above my pay grade. But maybe you look at a guy like, hey, Josh Simmons's medicals checked out and his upside is just through the roof. And you can get a guy like a Josh Simmons at a 10. And then, there were reports that came out a couple days ago, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, that there's a view that the run on wide receivers starts roughly around 18 to 20 is kind of when people are starting to look at teams that might be looking at a first round wide receiver. Maybe if somebody falls, the only guy that's off the board is Ted McMillan and you get into the 20s and Golden, Egbuka, and Burden are all sitting there. Maybe you utilize a future asset and one of those mid-second round picks, and you come up from 38 or whatever, right? You trade 38, 39, or 41 with a future asset. And it's like we can also identify and get a stud wide receiver. I mean, I know I'm dreaming here. We can.
Yeah. Well, no, that's the conversation of trading back, right? So like let's just say hypothetically they got 39 and 41 with Chicago's pick. Now you have what 30, 38, 39, and 41. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah. If you in that scenario, you would have 38, 39, and 41.
You have the firepower to move up. I mean, really, does a team in the teens really want to move down that far? Maybe not, but you have the firepower to get all the way up there. If you dangle two top four, if you dangle 38 and 39 to Seattle for 18, value-wise, that's fair. Like that's fair for them.
Yeah.
And so that's the battle back and forth, I think, that they'll have to play, even if Hunter's on the board, where they say, like you said, if they love Josh Simmons, right? Let's say they love Josh Simmons, and there's not going to be someone that has more trusted insight on Josh Simmons than Mike Vrabel. He's obviously really close with Day there in Ohio State, and he'll give it to Vrabel kind of straight. So if you love Simmons, you can get Simmons at 10, and then you're looking at, Matthew Golden or Buka, which is another Ohio State guy, and you say, I can get up into the 18 to 22 range and take one of them. Does that equate to Travis Hunter? So it's like, I mean, if I asked you right now, would you rather Travis Hunter or Josh Simmons and Egbuka? Who are you taking?
I'd still probably take Travis Hunter.
I'd think about it. I'd be tempted to do that.
Yeah.
However, the only thing that concerns me with Josh Simmons is, he tore his patellar tendon. Same thing Cole Strange did. Cole Strange missed a whole year. Like, if I'm spending the 10th pick on Josh Simmons, I want him to play like week 1.
Yeah, I think he'll be ready week 1. But even like you can substitute Simmons for like Membu if you like, hypothetically, or like even I don't know, like any guy in the top 10. Like let's throw out the need of position wise. Like I'm a huge Delon Walker fan from Georgia. Is like his position a huge need? I mean, edge rusher is a need. So if it was a Jelon Walker in an Egbuka, are you sitting there saying, would you rather Travis Hunter over them two? Whoever it would be at 10.
Yeah. I mean, I'd have to really consider it. That's why, I mean, they make the big bucks. They got to consider stuff like this. I mean, if I'm sitting there and I can get arguably the best player in the draft, Travis Hunter, or a franchise left tackle, and a guy like Luther Burden, who is probably one of my favorite players in the draft, that's very enticing.
Especially where I think that I feel, and I don't know if you want to call it draft pick fatigue. I feel like nobody's talking about Luther Burden, at least not in the mainstream. Like not nowadays. Like turn the clocks back a year ago, and they were talking about him being a potential top 5 pick, depending on how the draft board shook out. And now it's like,
he's a guy that just I don't know how I feel about him. Like I look at his tape, I really like what I see. There seems to be some off-field concerns, character concerns about him. From what I've read, some people say they're real, some people say they're bullshit. I think it might have been Daniel Jeremiah that said that everyone he spoke to called it bullshit. Personally, I have Matthew Golden as my wide receiver 1. I love his game. I have Egbuka as my wide receiver 2, with Tet and then Luther Burden right after that. So Burden is a guy that I would really like. I would be really interested in still moving up if it's in like the late first round. But I don't know how I would feel if like they moved up and walked away with like a Simmons in a Burden type of thing versus a Simmons in a like a Egbuka.
Yeah. So I mean, my rankings are pretty similar. I have Matthew Golden first, and then I have Luther Burden, and then Egbuka and McMillan 4. I'm not a Tet McMillan guy, but I mean, when it comes to watching Luther Burden, I really like to turn on the 2023 tape before he had, really poor quarterback play. And I mean, the dude just jumps off the tape. He is just an absolute freak with the ball in his hands. And I mean, if anybody can get him back to that form and get the off-field concerns off, it's Mike Vrabel.
Yeah.
Where do you have Travis Hunter if you consider him a wide receiver?
So he's one. So just pure receiver, Matthew Golden's one. But if we're going, all like
because that's what I'm going into. Like I'm in a few Patriots chats and stuff like that. There's like some Tech McMillan truthers and then some Tech McMillan like haters, and it's one of those situations which it makes me look like a hater. Like I don't hate the guy. I think that he is a intriguing talent. Like I said, I just view him as like a late round one guy. My question to those people is very simple. It's what does Ted McMillan do better than Travis Hunter? If your one answer is like jump balls, I mean, maybe Travis Hunter is phenomenal in contested catches too. McMillan might be able to get a little higher and get a little bit of a higher catch radius. But like, what exactly does he do better? And I just don't really see that answer in front of me.
I might be mistaken, but I believe Travis Hunter was ahead of Ted McMillan on contested catch rating last year. So even that, I mean, I just think Travis Hunter's even at receiver or corner, he's an elite talent. You can't really go wrong.
Do you see him? Where do you see him playing this year?
I think you really got to let Stephon Diggs kind of mentor him while he really works on, route running polish and stuff like that. Cause I mean, he's an explosive athlete wherever he plays. Josh McDaniels is going to get him the ball. So, I mean, I think in the Z he'd be really good. I think if you, put Stephon Diggs on the outside, like he was at Buffalo, and you have him, Hunter kind of moving around and you can kind of pair them together and have them complement each other. I think that'd be really fun to watch.
Yeah, I know Hunter played most of his snaps outside, I think, in Colorado, and he obviously received a ton of targets, and then he would go over on defense, and I'm pretty sure he had 14 pass breakups last year, which is just an absolute absurd number in college football. Zach Brewitt, where are you on the Travis Hunter train in terms of do you think it's possible for him to be a two-way guy, or do you find it more unrealistic that he can be that in the NFL? And by a two-way guy, I mean like mostly full-time on both sides.
Yeah, I think if he and they, meaning whichever team drafts him, want him to be a two-way player, I see it as like a short-term couple of year thing before his body starts to break down. That's going to be such a taxing, it's already a taxing sport as it is, and both of those positions are probably one of the more taxing at on either side of the ball. So if they're going to be, playing corner and wide receiver, I can't see it being a long-term thing, maybe for 1 year, and then they'll determine kind of where he's at corner and wide receiver. Maybe give it 2 years max, but I would see him being more of a one side of the ball player. And I think whoever's going to take him has to view him at wide receiver if it's top four. It'd be hard. It'd be much harder, I think, of a sell for both internally and to the fans and everybody else to take a corner at 2 or 3 or whatever. I know like there's been kind of, anomalies like Sauce Gardner, I think was 4. There's been a few other safeties that have been 5, but taking a corner that high really have to be like a generational talent. I'm not saying Travis Hunter is not, but I view it as short-term two-way for the grand scheme of things, a one-way player.
Yeah, fair. I mean, that's kind of also part of the conversation I agree. Like playing 100 snaps a game, like it's just, I don't think it's sustainable in the long term. But it also kind of shifting into a conversation that Ben and I butt heads about quite often. And it's the general approach positional wise in the draft. I'll send Ben a mock and it will have like, dude, he drives me fucking nuts. I'll send him a mock where it has like 2 edge rushers in the top 4 rounds, and he'll be like 2 edge rushes that early, question mark, and like a day later sends me a mock with 2 edge rushers in the top 4 rounds, and it drives me freaking nuts. But anyways, the debate between like how do you balance best available in needs. Obviously, left tackle at this moment is the biggest need. But if you're drafting Travis Hunter and let's say they plan to play him primarily at corner, like does that, let's say you view him primarily as a corner, does that negatively affect his value for you guys? Or are you saying like, just go with the talent, trust the player in one way or another, it will help the team? McGlone, you can start with us there.
If he's only playing corner, I don't think I can justify taking him at 4, especially when you have one of the best corners in the league and Christian Gonzalez, and you just spent $60 million on a number 2 corner in Carlton Davis. I think he's way too good with the ball in his hands to play him strictly on defense. And with an offense that hasn't had a stud receiver in I don't even know how long, you got to play him a receiver.
Yeah, I think it's unlikely that even if he's primarily corner that he doesn't see offensive snaps. I think he, like, no matter what, he'll see offensive snaps on. Doesn't matter the team that he's on. That's just seems to be the biggest question. And I don't know about you guys, I've kind of gotten the sense that more teams probably view him as a corner, which certainly will affect his draft stock and how teams view him. Like, where are you on? How do you balance that? So if you view him as a corner, does that put or let's say the Pats view him as a corner? Does that mean you would turn and say you would rather Will Campbell than a Travis Hunter at corner?
I think Mike Vrabel would say that. I think Mike Vrabel would say, all right, he's going to play corner. I'm not taking a corner at top 5. I'm not taking a corner. I don't think he would do a top 10. So I think if him and the front office view Travis Hunter as primarily defense, and of course he's going to get, as you said, some snaps on offense, I think that would put Will Campbell ahead of Travis Hunter. And like I said, I think that would push Vrabel, right? All signs point to him being the decision maker. Him saying, he's my guy. I'm going to go get Will Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I'm giving up a lot of talent and a lot of explosiveness with Travis Hunter, but I can't take the risk of a guy who would play 20% of snaps on offense, if that. If we're viewing him as a primary corner, and as you said, Zach, he would be your third corner, potentially your second. He's not going to overtake Christian Gonzalez. He's not going to overtake Carlton Davis, at least in the first half of the year, probably. So it'd be a real tough sell and a real, I think, bind to put Mike Vrabel in that position if he was to take Hunter as a corner over Campbell.
The good thing is they could play all three. I think you could easily put Travis Hunter inside and he can handle the slot like it's his job. And not gonna lie, if you had all three of those in the secondary, that is
a hell of a secondary.
Beautiful secondary. Like,
be a hell of a secondary
of a top 3. Finishing up here, looking past the first round, is there any guys that have come out and slapped you in the face on day 2 or day 3 that you're overly excited about and want to become a Patriot?
Yes, I think the obvious ones are, the Ariante Ursery, Josh Connerly guys, but I absolutely love Kinshawn Judkins, from the running back from Ohio State. That dude is the definition of juice. Like, when he hits the hole, he is just gone. And if you can get him in the 3rd round, that's what my latest mock draft has is them taking him top of the 3rd round, which I'm not sure if he's going to make it past the 2nd, but that's a home run hitter right there. And I think he immediately might take Ramondre Stevenson's starting spot.
What's your thoughts on JD Giddens?
On who?
JD Giddens.
It's DJ.
Okay.
It's DJ Giddens.
So this running back class is just.
Oh, I said JD.
this running back class is just absolutely ridiculous. You can like, that guy's a freak too. You can just go through the list and there's 10 guys you can just write in freak next to the name. So, you don't have to use that high of a pick on running back, but I think Judkins is that type of player that needs a high pick like that.
I think after first round, like, running back becomes acceptable at any spot. The thing is it, you use a 2nd round pick on a running back. I think it's a little bit more pressure of they better hit type of approach to it. Ben, who you got as any day 2 or day 3 guys that you love?
So, a couple of guys that I would say pre-free agency I really liked. I was a big Cody Simon. I liked him, linebacker out of Ohio State, but clearly they will probably not be taking a linebacker in this draft after what they did in free agency. He was a guy I kind of liked, like 4th, 5th round if you could get him there. Depending on how the draft falls out, if they say they miss on a wide receiver, they can't figure out a way to trade back up into that like 2nd, 3rd of the 1st round, and there's no wide receiver available sitting there at 38. Like that next crop of guys, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, Jalen Royals. There's somebody else in that range that I'm forgetting. But I know, and I'm going to blank on his name. I was reading, thank you, Trey Harris out of Ole Miss. I was reading somebody, it may have been Mike Reese. It was one of the like bigger name Pats writers who basically said that Jalen Noel screams being a New England Patriot. In like one of his combine reviews, he said that like Jalen Noel is the guy that just checks all the boxes for a guy who could just, no pun intended, but slot into the offense and be an inside. Good route runner, good hands. He's a guy that I like, from a skill position standpoint. I think a sneaky name for running back just because, maybe not getting as much love as he probably could be. I was a big Cam Scatabo fan this year. He's more of a bigger bodied guy than a Quinshon Judkins. But I think the skill set is there. Like Zach said, the running back class is pretty deep, deeper than I think it's been in the last couple of years. I mean, obviously it's super top heavy with Ashton Jonty, but I mean, Omari and Hampton, it should be very, very good. But yeah, I mean, I would say, so like, Jalen Noel, Cam Scatabo, guys like that.
Pruitt?
Yeah, I think I was going to go through a lot of the same wide receivers on day 2 that Ben did, especially Jalen Noel, kind of just, as you said, screams, your typical slot receiver for the Patriots we've had in the past. Quick, gets the ball, gets open. But Jaden Higgins, I think, is a guy that if we were to grab him, he wouldn't really he would present a type of player that we don't have and we haven't had in a while. A guy who could kind of go up and get it. Guy who's bigger bodied. Kind of a freak athlete in terms of his 4.4 speed, but also his size. Compares well to T. Higgins from what I've seen. So, right. I mean, if you're going to go get a Travis Hunter, then maybe that shifts things a bit because taking 2 wide receivers in the top 2 rounds, might be a bit of a conundrum. But I think he's a guy that you look at, especially if you get Will Campbell at 4. He's a guy that you look at as someone of a player that you don't have right now, as I mentioned. Diggs is more of the outside, a bit more of a route runner than a go up and get it type of guy. Everybody else is kind of that smaller kind of slot receiver, a bit quicker on the inside. So Jaden Higgins would be a guy that I would be looking at as especially if you go, like I said, Will Campbell at 4, to go get him as kind of that change of pace, different look for Drake May.
Yeah, I'm definitely higher on Trey Harris than I think the general consensus is. I think he's a great route runner. He has just been consistent and was very, very good at Ole Miss. I really like what I see there. So he's certainly a guy that I like. Do I like him at 38? Nah, I don't know, but I don't know if he also falls to the early 3rd. A guy like I mentioned, DJ Giddens, I love his game. I absolutely love his game. I think he has really good vision. He's a really good athlete. He's got good speed. He's patient at the line of scrimmage. And he's a guy that you can get probably somewhere between that 77 pick and that 10 something, 104 or something, 6 that they own. LaQuint Allen is a running back that's going to go on day 3. He had 60 receptions this past year at Syracuse. I think he's a pretty consistent all-around back as well.
It's a lot for a college. That's a lot for a college running back.
Yeah,
It's a lot for it's a lot for an NFL running back, for that matter.
He's not like really that small either. Like it's not like he's like a James White style, like small, where he's just solely a receiving back. I like his game a lot. I think it's Chase Lunt, the tackle from UConn. I think he is a really, really intriguing, probably early day 3 tackle option. Now, I don't think you could I think coming out of the draft, you would have a hard sell to people if that's the best tackle you take. So in theory, he could be like the second guy that maybe they double up at tackle. It's not like they have an answer at right tackle long term either. Still,
right.
Outside of them, there's some edge guys I really like. Ben, I go back and forth on Princely. I loved him at first. Then I started falling away from him, and I've started to really kind of like his game again. Kyle Kennard is another guy from South Carolina that really intrigues me. He's probably going to be around 3 guy. So the more I watch and look into this draft, the more I really like day 2 and 3. And so that also plays a factor, I feel like, into the concept of trading back for me. I still lean, if it's Hunter, just take the guy. But if they could get a haul and it's a package, if Hunter's not there and they can get, let's say, a second round pick, you move back to like 8 and you get a second round pick in the mix. Or the Panthers don't have a second, but fuck that. You know what I'm saying? If they can add another day 2 pick, I think that's really important of the talent. I think that's there. Which I think we've heard around. It seems like there's like a top 10, and then like a little bit of a fringe, and then the guys that are going like 20 to 60, 20 to 40 are basically all around the same talent on board sets wise. So I would really like to add a day 2 pick. But that also could come by trading up, using a future pick. So that shouldn't be ruled out. That shouldn't be the only way that they could add a second round pick or a third round pick. They could always take Hunter and then move up from 69 into the 50s to get a guy that they love. That's my biggest thing about this draft. I feel is they just don't dick around. Go get the guys you want. It's kind of that simple for me.
Yeah, I'd like to see I'd like to see some aggression.
Yeah, like you said,
don't be stupid, but be that team that identifies talent and is willing to, even if there's a little bit of an overpay, right? Like our team's going to look at it and say, they get Will Campbell at 4. And say they trade up from 38 and with a future second round pick and get themselves into the 20s because a guy like a Matthew Golden or a Luther Burden are still sitting there. And if Drake May's sitting in the pocket, no one's touching him, and he's throwing dimes to Luther Burden 17 games a season, even in the fall. No one's going to be like, oh yeah, man, we really wish we'd have that second round pick in 2026. If they hit on those guys, now granted, glass half full, glass half empty. If it in the future, if that pick might happen, if they identify a wide receiver and he sucks, which tends to be more where they fall in line with wide receivers. But I'd like to see some aggression where they say, hey, we've identified the guy at this position. We think he's a top available player, and we need him, and we didn't mess around. We paid a premium to move up and get him, and he's going to be a keystone piece of this team for the next, 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, the hope is that with Mike Vrabel here, they'll be much more aggressive in the draft, especially after we saw him be aggressive in free agency, right? Milton Williams was all but out the door and into Carolina, and then he said, no, you're our guy. We're going to overpay a little bit for you and bring you in here. And Milton Williams basically said that. He's like, no, I was out the door. And then they came back and said, you're our guy, you prioritize me, so I prioritize them. Where Elliott Wolf didn't do that last year, right? He could have had Ladd McConkey. He traded back, got Jalen Polk, tried to get a little cute. So the hope is that
I
with
hate when
Mike
people say
Vrabel,
that. It gives me pains. I get like chest pains whenever we talk about
He-
this soundtrack. Because like Ben
did.
knows how much I fucking love Ladd McConkey.
We talked about it. Yeah, exactly. He's great, and he would have done wonders with Drake May, and obviously Jalen Polk did not. So the hope is that Mike Vrabel kind of puts all on the table and says, "This is our guy. We're going to go trade up. Yes, it's probably going to be an overpay because when you're trading up, it most often is an overpay.
Yep.
But if he's your guy, you have to go get him, and you aren't really in a position to sit back and wait for maybe a lesser talent or a hope that someone falls to you. And I don't view Mike Vrabel as that type of coach and front office personnel.
Yeah, and especially if that guy hits, no one's gonna think back a year from now and be like, yeah, he's good, but we way overpaid for it. Like no one's gonna care what it took to get him.
No.
Like, do you think Houston cares that they traded? Like, I couldn't even tell you what Houston traded 2 years ago to move up from 12 to 3 to take.
I was just going to use that same example.
Right after taking C.J. Stroud. Like nobody remembers that trade. And
exactly.
Will Anderson is a stud, and it looks like they landed a potential franchise quarterback in C.J. Stroud. Like they utilize the assets. Like nobody remembers that trade because it's like Will Anderson's one of the best pass rushers in football, so nobody cares.
That also goes down to the notion of, and this is where we butt heads a little bit, Ben, is like trust your board. I know the Patriots have needs, and I'm going to say this every episode until the draft, which is, I don't know, 3 or 4 more. Take the best available player, within reason. Obviously, like I'm not saying take a QB in round 1, and I'm not really a running back in round 1 guy, but take the best available player. You know what I mean? Like I'll put out a mock, and it's like Benjamin Morris in the corner from Notre Dame in round 2, and they're like, "Oh, we don't need a cornerback." Blah 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 blah. It drives me fucking nuts.
That's me.
Like,
I did that to you yesterday.
Yes, I know you do this to me all the time, and it drives. Half the time I think it's just to piss me off. But it's already difficult enough to hit in the NFL. Like, don't be moving down your board multiple spots because you're like, oh well, we need an edge rusher, so we'll take the 6th guy on our board instead of the number 1 guy being a cornerback. Like, take the cornerback. You know what will happen if you hit on him? He will help you win. Like, you can never have too many good cornerbacks. You know what happens if he's really good? In 2 years, when Carlton Davis is easily cuttable, you have your cornerback 2 to slide in for the next 3 to 5 years, 7 years after that. Stop worrying about it. Like, draft the best available players because they will help your team win. Yep. Everybody wants we need a tackle first, so let's go Will Campbell. Oh, we need a wide receiver the next most, so let's take a wide receiver in round 2, and then we'll take an edge rusher in round 3, and then we'll take a guard in round 4 and a safety in round 5, and just draft based off your need list. And it's like, dude, that's what the Patriots did last year, and look how that worked out. Like, are we looking at this draft right now from last year and saying this is good? The answer is no. Our second best pick is fucking Joe Milton. What do we think about it? Draft best available. That's my rant. You know what? That's my state your take. Anybody who argues against it, screw you. All right. What's your state your takes, boys? Zach, just a quick rundown. It's any take you want, any take. It doesn't even have to be sports related. I'll let you think yours for a second. Ben, start us off. Give me something. I don't even care if you're not ready.
I was born ready. I took my prune juice and my pills this morning. I'm gonna say.
Aren't you late for bingo? That ends at 7.
It's on Wednesdays. It's on Wednesdays. Yeah, Elks Club is
Wednesdays,
closed on
Wednesdays 2 p.m. to 2:30.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say, just based off what I heard today, that I think even if he's sitting there at 4, and he meaning Travis Hunter, I do think that unless the Patriots get the trade they want, they're going to take Will Campbell at 4. I think that just based on what Vrabel identified in pre-free agency as a way he wanted to build this team for the future, and the fact that, through a little bit of not wanting to overpay for guys who shouldn't have been overpaid and guys who didn't hit free agency. That's like the one thing that the Patriots really didn't do in free agency was find a long-term solution on the offensive line. Moses definitely helps, but he's 34. So I'll say that, even if Travis Hunter is on the board, unless they get a market value trade down offer, I think it's Will Campbell, because I think that's how Vrabel wants to build this roster.
I like it. Bruin?
Keeping on the Patriots topic, I was higher on them last year than I should have been, obviously, with how that shook out. This year, I'm equally high, if not higher. They will be hosting a playoff game this year. Just all the additions they've made, especially March take. I said that Hawks are going to be winning the AL East last time. I'm going Pats are going to be hosting a playoff game this year.
How you feeling about the AL East take right now?
I'll say that for as negative as I've been, the one time I go and try to step out of that and be positive about them, they go and prove me wrong. So I might be going back to my negative Sox takes. But no, I think, like I said, the Pats are going to be hosting a playoff game. They just have made all the additions they've made. They aren't in the margins. They're like star players, stud players. All of them are going to be starters. Mike Vrabel has the mentality to get the best out of everybody else in a way that Gerard Mayo just never could have sniffed. And I think the coordinators and the other coaches that he's brought in will get the best out of who's currently here and who else they've brought in. So quite bullish on the Pats this year.
Love it.
McGlone, finish us off here.
I do not care how long Will Campbell's arms are. I have not cared since September. I do not care now, especially since all the crazy stuff coming out about the combine measurements being wrong and all this weird stuff. And, Field Yates reported down from the pro day that an NFL scout did his arm measurement and they were 33. I mean, he played in the SEC against NFL edge rushers as a true freshman and has played there ever since. So I do not care how long his arms are.
You mean to say 3/4 of an inch makes a huge difference? Like, no.
Seriously.
Hey. 3/4 of an inch matters.
Something.
No. I agree for the most part. Like, I've been a little hesitant on Campbell, but like, it's the ultimate, like, do you trust the film? Do you trust the tape? Or are you going to, like, stare at measurements and say, that is really what's going to push me off on a guy? And it's going to be an interesting battle, but the Patriots clearly see him as a tackle. So if they believe in him, then I can't see why he won't be I think, Ben, you probably will end up right. Is if they get, unless they get a real offer, if Hunter's not there, it's going to probably be Will Campbell. Even though I love Membu. I love Membu as well. But all right, that's going to wrap it up for this week. Zach McGlone from Gridiron Heroics, thanks for coming on this week.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Yeah, we'll have plenty of more Patriots talk. Obviously, with the draft about a little over 3 weeks away. The NFL season's obviously the best, but like draft season, especially when your team sucks,
it's definitely a 1B. Definitely.
Yeah,
a 1B.
It's the bittersweet part of like your team sucking is like draft talk and stuff like that. For a guy like me, I love talking like that. And it makes me able to piss Ben off in the chat very easily. So, all right, that's going to do it for this week. We'll be back maybe later this week. But if not, on Monday, Cerrone Battle is joining us from 98.5. So we'll be back. Raise the banner. Thanks for listening. And, good night.